Hyun Kim checked his oxygen tank one last time before diving into the clear blue waters. The morning sun sparkled on the gentle waves as he adjusted his mask. As a marine biologist at the Jindo Coastal Research Station, these reef surveys were part of his routine. But today felt different somehow. The water embraced him as he descended. Hyun had always felt at home beneath the waves. His colleagues often joked that he must have been a fish in another life. The reef came into view, a vibrant underwater city teeming with life. Fish of every color darted between coral structures as Hyun began his work, carefully documenting the health of this delicate ecosystem. 2 hours into his survey, something caught his eye. A strange blue light pulsed in the distance beyond the edge of the reef where the seafloor dropped off sharply. It wasn't like any bioluminescent creature he'd studied before. The light pattern seemed almost deliberate. Curiosity got the better of him. Hyun swam toward the mysterious glow, checking his oxygen gauge as he ventured away from his planned route. The blue light grew stronger as he approached the underwater cliff. It seemed to be coming from somewhere below, in a network of caves that honeycombed the rock face. As he drew closer, the light flickered erratically. Hyun hesitated at the mouth of a narrow cave entrance. It was dangerous to enter underwater caves without proper equipment or a diving partner. But then he saw a human hand reaching out from inside the cave. Someone was trapped down here. Hyun didn't hesitate. He switched on his diving lamp and entered the cave, following the increasingly frantic blue light. The passage narrowed, then opened into a small chamber. What he saw made him pause in shock. A young woman was trapped under a fallen rock, her lower body pinned against the cave floor. But this was no ordinary woman. Her skin gave off the blue light he'd been following, pulsing patterns across her body that seemed to grow weaker by the second. Her hair floated around her face like dark seaweed, but her eyes were what truly gave her away. They were larger than human eyes, completely black except for rings of bright silver that fixed on him with shocking intelligence. She wasn't human. A small tremor shook the cave and pieces of rock began falling around them. The structure was collapsing. The strange woman's eyes widened in fear and she reached toward him again, her movements growing weaker. Yoon made his decision instantly. He swam to her side and braced himself against the rock, pinning her down. It was heavy, but adrenaline coursed through his veins as he pushed with everything he had. The rock shifted just enough for her to pull free. As soon as she was clear, another tremor hit, stronger this time. Large chunks of the ceiling crashed down. Hyun grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the exit. The passage seemed narrower than before, debris partially blocking their path. His air gauge beeped a warning, oxygen levels dangerously low. The woman seemed to understand their predicament. Despite her weakened state, she pointed to a different tunnel, one Hyun hadn't noticed before. Trusting her, he followed. The new passage twisted upward, and just when Hyun's lungs felt ready to burst, they broke through to the surface inside a small air pocket within the cave. They gasped for breath, but the woman's breathing sounded strange, a high whistling sound that didn't seem normal. "We need to get out completely," Hyun said, though he wasn't sure if she understood. "This whole system might collapse." She nodded slightly, surprising him. They took deep breaths and dove again, following the tunnel until finally, mercifully, they emerged into open water. Hyun could see the shore about 50 meters away. The woman was struggling now, her movements growing clumsy and slow. Hyun wrapped an arm around her waist and kicked hard, pulling them both toward the beach. When they finally reached the shallow water, Hyun helped her onto the sand. In the sunlight, her differences were even more apparent. The blue markings on her skin formed intricate patterns that now pulsed weakly. Her eyes, those remarkable silver-ringed eyes, focused on him with evident gratitude. She reached a trembling hand toward his face. Hyun remained still, unsure what to expect. Her fingertips touched his forehead lightly. Suddenly, a flood of images and feelings washed through his mind. Gratitude, relief, wonder, fear. It lasted only seconds before her hand fell away, the strange woman's eyes fluttered closed and she went limp on the sand. Hyun checked quickly. She was still breathing, but unconscious. He looked around the deserted beach, then back at the alien woman he'd just rescued from certain death. "What are you?" he whispered. "And what am I supposed to do with you now?" Yun carried the unconscious alien woman along the beach, grateful that the research station's private shoreline remained empty at this early hour. Her body was surprisingly light, almost weightless in his arms. The blue markings on her skin had dimmed to a faint glow, barely visible in the morning sunlight. He took the back path to his cabin, ducking behind equipment sheds whenever he spotted a colleague in the distance. His small cabin sat apart from the main research building, perched on stilts at the edge of the forest. Hyun carefully laid the woman on his bed and covered her with a blanket, unsure if she felt cold or warm the way humans did. Her breathing had steadied, but that strange whistling sound continued with each inhale. Hyun paced nervously, checking the windows every few minutes. What had he gotten himself into? Should he call someone? But who? If he contacted his superiors, they would take her away. The government would get involved. She would become a specimen, a subject to be studied and dissected. No, he couldn't let that happen. 3 hours passed before the alien woman stirred. Her eyes opened suddenly, those silver rings contracting sharply in the cabin's dim light. She sat up with alarming speed, backing against the wall, her gaze darting around the unfamiliar surroundings before settling on Hyun. "I won't hurt you," he said softly, raising his empty hands. "You're safe here." The woman tilted her head, studying him. Then she raised her hand, palm facing outward, and made a gentle beckoning motion. Hesitantly, Hyun stepped forward. She reached out and again touched his forehead with her fingertips. This time, the connection felt stronger, more controlled. Images flooded his mind, not just feelings, but actual pictures, symbols, concepts. Hyun gasped as understanding blossomed in his thoughts. She was communicating with him. "Nari," he said aloud, the name appearing in his mind. "Your name is Nari?" She nodded, a very human gesture. More images flowed into his consciousness. A vast ship hovering above Earth's atmosphere, beings similar to her moving through corridors filled with technology beyond his comprehension. The word Taiyang accompanied these visions. "You're from the stars," Hyun whispered. "Your people, the Taiyang. You've been watching us?" Nari nodded again, then frowned slightly as she concentrated. The mental connection deepened, and this time words formed directly in his mind. "Scientific, the research vessel," the halting voice in his head explained. "Studying Earth's oceans. My transport malfunction. Crashed." Her communication grew, stronger with each passing minute, as if she were quickly learning to adapt her telepathic abilities to a human mind. "We observe only," she continued. "Earth is protected territory. No interference allowed. Humans are primitive but fascinating. Your development is unique." Hyun's scientific curiosity overrode his initial fear. "How long have you been studying us?" 200 Earth years, came the reply. "Different research teams. My first mission here." She looked troubled suddenly, her blue markings pulsing in what Hyun was beginning to recognize as emotional responses. "I have broken non-interference protocols. Being rescued by a human, forbidden. My team cannot know. But they must be looking for you," Hyun reasoned. "Yes, but standard procedure for compromised missions. Retreat immediately. Avoid detection at all costs." Hyun frowned. "So they might leave without you?" Nari's markings dimmed. "Possible. Unless I can reach my emergency beacon. It was in my transport, which is now at the bottom of the ocean," Hyun finished. "No, ejected before crash. Located inland, approximately 5 kilometers from here." She pointed west toward the forested hills beyond the research station. "If activated, my team will extract me discreetly." Hyun walked to the window, looking out at the road where a government vehicle had just pulled up to the main building. Men in dark suits emerged, speaking with the station director who pointed toward the beach. "I think people already noticed something entered our atmosphere," he said gravely. "They're looking for you." Nari's markings pulsed rapidly, her version of alarm. "I can help you," Hyun said, making his decision. "I can help you reach your beacon. Before they find you. Before your ship leaves without you." "Why would you help me?" The question formed clearly in his mind. Hyun smiled. "Because that's what humans do. Sometimes we surprise ourselves with kindness." Nari's head tilted again, her silver-ringed eyes studying him with newfound interest. Humans are indeed fascinating. Outside, the men in suits had started walking toward the beach, precisely where Hyun had brought Nari ashore. "We need to leave now," he said, grabbing a backpack and quickly filling it with supplies. "Can you walk?" Nari stood, somewhat unsteadily. "Yes, lead the way, Hyun Kim of Earth." The helicopter thundered overhead, its searchlight sweeping across the dense forest canopy. Hyun pulled Nari deeper into the shadows beneath a rocky overhang as the light passed just meters from their hiding spot. They had been traveling for hours, following the faint signal from Nari's emergency beacon. "They're using thermal imaging," Hyun whispered, though he knew Nari could sense his thoughts now. Their mental connection had strengthened over the past day. "We need to keep moving once they pass." Nari nodded weakly. Her blue markings had grown dangerously dim, and her breathing was becoming more labored. The whistling sound with each breath had turned into a concerning rattle. "Earth's atmosphere. Higher nitrogen content than I can process long-term," she explained through their connection. "Not immediately fatal, but weakening." Hyun frowned with worry. "How much farther to your beacon?" 3 kilometers, she responded. "But growing. Difficult to sense precise location." The helicopter circled back, hovering overhead. Voices and flashlight beams appeared on the trail below them. The government search teams were getting closer. When the helicopter finally moved away, Hyun helped Nari to her feet. "We need to cross the ridge before dawn," he said. "Can you make it?" She straightened herself, determination flashing in her silver-ringed eyes. "Lead. I will follow." They climbed through the night, taking small animal trails that wound up the coastal hills. Twice they froze as search parties passed nearby. Once, they had to wade through an icy stream to throw off potential tracking dogs. All the while, Nari grew weaker. Near dawn, they reached a small cave in the hillside. "Rest here," Yoon insisted. "Just for an hour." Nari collapsed onto the cave floor, her markings now barely visible. Her silver eye rings had dulled to a faint gray. Hyun felt panic rising in his chest as he realized she might not survive long enough to reach her beacon. "Your atmospheric composition," he said suddenly. "What elements do you need most?" Through their mental link, Nari shared the chemical makeup of her homeworld's air, similar to Earth's but with different proportions and some trace elements Earth didn't have in its atmosphere. Hyun rummaged through his backpack. As a marine biologist, he carried certain equipment that might help. He pulled out his portable oxygen tank from his diving gear, a small filtration system used for water samples, and various chemicals from his test kit. "I think I can help," he said, setting to work. "It won't be perfect, but it might buy us time." Using the filter membrane's oxygen tank and chemical compounds, Hyun crafted a crude breathing apparatus. He calibrated the oxygen flow and added specific minerals from his test kit that might substitute for the trace elements Nari needed. "Try this," he said, fitting the mask gently over her face. Nari's eyes widened as she took her first breath through the device. Almost immediately, her markings brightened. The whistling in her breathing calmed. "Better," she communicated. "How did you know?" "I'm a scientist," Hyun smiled. "We solve problems." Through their connection, he felt Nari's surprise and admiration. Images flowed between them, her people's assumptions about humans as primitive, beings incapable of such ingenuity, contrasted with what she now witnessed firsthand. "Your species underestimates yours," she admitted. your resourcefulness, your willingness to help a stranger. Not all humans would help, Hyun said honestly, but many would. They rested until Nari regained some strength, then continued their journey as the sun rose. The makeshift breathing apparatus worked better than Hyun had dared hope. By midday, they had reached the coordinates of the beacon, a small clearing on the far side of the ridge, overlooking a different bay than the one where Hyun's research station stood. Nari located her device, a small metallic sphere half buried in soil. Need time to activate properly, she explained, removing the breathing mask briefly to touch the sphere. The object hummed to life, emitting a soft blue light similar to Nari's markings. How long before your ship responds? Hyun asked. 1 hour, perhaps less, Nari said, replacing the mask. Signal travels through different space than your radio waves. Hyun nodded, scanning their surroundings. The clearing offered no cover, but they had seen no signs of pursuit since dawn. Perhaps they had evaded the search teams after all. Then came the sound of vehicles approaching. Doors slammed in. The distance, voices called out orders. They've found us, Hyun said, heart sinking. Nari looked at the beacon, then at Hyun. Too soon. Signal not strong enough yet. Through the trees, they could see men in black tactical gear advancing, weapons drawn. A helicopter appeared on the horizon, racing toward their position. What now? Hyun asked as government agents began to encircle the clearing. Get down. Hyun pulled Nari behind a fallen tree as agents moved into the clearing. The breathing apparatus he'd made hissed softly with each breath she took. Men with weapons called to each other as they advanced through the trees. We're surrounded, Hyun whispered, panic rising. A helicopter hovered above, its rotor wash bending the grass around the small beacon still pulsing blue in the center of the clearing. Attention, this is a restricted area. A voice boomed through a megaphone. Come out with your hands up, you are surrounded. Hyun looked at Nari, whose eyes remained fixed on her beacon. Has your ship received the signal? Not yet, she communicated mentally. Need more time. 2 agents in black tactical gear appeared at the edge of the clearing, weapons raised. One spotted them and pointed. There, behind the log. Hands up. Now, the other shouted. Hyun slowly raised his hands, moving to shield Nari. Don't shoot, we're unarmed. More agents converged on their position. One spoke into a radio. Sir, we have them. 1 male subject, approximately 30 years old, Asian, and 1 unknown female subject. Requesting instructions. A voice crackled back. Secure both subjects. Extraction team is en route, ETA 5 minutes. Hyun felt a wave of despair. So close, yet they had failed. As agents approached cautiously, Nari suddenly gripped his arm. Look, she projected into his mind. Above them, beyond the helicopter, a disturbance had appeared in the sky, a rippling effect like heat waves above hot pavement, but spreading in a perfect circle. The air itself seemed to fold inward. My ship, Nari explained. They received the signal. The government agents hadn't noticed yet, focused on approaching Hyun and Nari. One gestured with his weapon. Stand up slowly. Hyun began to comply when a blinding light burst from above. The helicopter pilot shouted in alarm as his instruments went haywire. The aircraft wobbled dangerously before the pilot regained control and veered away. The rippling in the sky expanded, and a sound like thunder rolled across the clearing. Every electronic device the agents carried, radios, phones, tactical equipment, sparked and went dead simultaneously. What's happening? One agent yelled, backing away as his weapon's electronic sight flickered out. The sky directly above them darkened to an impossible black. Not the black of night, but a complete absence of light. From this darkness, a beam of blue energy shot down, enveloping Nari's beacon. The small sphere rose into the air, spinning rapidly. Chaos erupted. Agents scattered, seeking cover. The helicopter retreated to a safe distance. In the confusion, Nari grabbed Hyun's hand and pulled him toward the center of the clearing, directly beneath the strange darkness above. "Now," she communicated. "We must go now." Hyun hesitated. "Go where?" "The extraction field will activate in seconds," she explained hurriedly. "It will take me home. Home. To her ship. To the stars." An agent recovered enough to aim his weapon at them. "Freeze!" The blue light from the beacon suddenly expanded, creating a dome of energy around Hyun and Nari. The agent's bullets bounced harmlessly off the dome's surface. "Come with me," Nari offered, surprising Hyun. "You saved my life. You could see the stars." For a brief, wild moment, Hyun considered it. Adventure beyond imagination. Knowledge beyond human understanding. But then he thought of his family, his work, his world. "I can't," he said. "This is my home." Understanding filled Nari's eyes. The extraction field grew stronger, tugging at her. She reached into a hidden pocket in her garment and withdrew a small crystal, no bigger than a USB drive. It glowed with the same blue light as her markings. "Then I offer you this," she said, pressing it into his palm. "My reward for your help." "What is it?" "Knowledge," she explained quickly, as the extraction field pulsed with growing urgency. "Medical cures your people haven't discovered. Methods to heal your dying oceans. Data on restoring ecosystems." Hyun stared at the small device. "Your people allow this?" "No," she admitted. "It violates our non-interference protocols, but—" She hesitated, then finished firmly. "Your actions have shown that humans are more ready than my people believe. This isn't our most advanced technology, but enough to help your people progress while developing on your own path." The extraction field pulsed again, more insistently. Agents regrouped at the edge of the clearing, uncertain how to proceed against technology they couldn't comprehend. "Thank you," Hyun said, closing his hand around the crystal. "Will I see you again?" Nari's markings pulsed warmly. "Perhaps, when your world is ready for formal contact." The blue dome of energy contracted suddenly around Nari. She removed the breathing apparatus Hyun had made and handed it back to him, with a gesture of respect. "Goodbye, Hyun Kim." Her voice echoed in his mind one last time. "Remember us kindly to your world." In a flash of light that forced Hyun to shield his eyes, Nari vanished. The dark void above disappeared as quickly as it had appeared, leaving only blue sky. The beacon was gone. All that remained was the small crystal in Hyun's hand, and the government agents now rushing toward him. Hyun quickly slipped the crystal into his pocket as they surrounded him, weapons raised. "Where did it go?" one demanded. "The alien. Where did it go?" Hyun looked up at the clear blue sky. "Home," he said simply. She went home. The white lights of the interrogation room had burned into Hyun's eyes for hours, as government officials questioned him repeatedly about the unexplained atmospheric phenomenon and the unidentified subject who had disappeared. He told them only what he needed to, that he had found a lost hiker who had later run off into the woods. The officials clearly didn't believe him, but without Nari or any tangible evidence, they eventually had to let him go with a stern warning about national security. 3 months later, Hyun left the research station for a position at Seoul National University. The small blue crystal remained hidden in a secret compartment in his desk. At night, he would connect it to a specially built interface and study its contents bit by bit. The knowledge it contained was staggering. Revolutionary treatments for cancer, Alzheimer's disease, and genetic disorders. Detailed methods for removing plastic pollution from oceans and restoring coral reefs in a fraction of the normal time. Hyun knew he couldn't simply announce these discoveries. Questions would be asked. Tests would be demanded. Sources would be scrutinized. Instead, he developed a careful plan. He published a small research paper on a new approach to coral reef restoration, presenting it as a logical extension of existing techniques. When it proved successful in small trials, larger environmental organizations took notice. Within 2 years, his method had been adopted by conservation projects in 12 countries. For the medical breakthroughs, Hyun was even more cautious. He established collaborations with leading researchers in different fields, subtly guiding their work with carefully placed suggestions. "Have you considered trying this protein sequence?" he would ask a cancer researcher. "What about this enzyme?" As a catalyst, he would suggest to another team. Each time he revealed just enough to move human science forward without raising suspicion. By the third year, new treatments for 3 previously incurable diseases were in clinical trials. Hyun kept his name peripheral to these discoveries, content to watch from the sidelines as human suffering diminished. Sometimes, on clear nights, he would stand on his apartment balcony and look up at the stars, wondering if Nari was watching Earth's progress. Once he thought he saw a ripple in the night sky like heat waves above hot pavement, but perfectly circular. It lasted only seconds before disappearing. In the 4th year, strange blue lights began appearing in deep ocean trenches around the world. Researchers were baffled, but Hyun recognized the patterns, similar to Nari's bioluminescent markings. He kept his observations to himself. 5 years to the day after Nari's departure, Hyun stood on the deck of a research vessel in the East China Sea. The expedition was studying the remarkably rapid recovery of a once devastated coral ecosystem, recovery driven by Hyun's innovative methods. As the sun set, casting orange light across the gentle waves, a familiar blue glow appeared beneath the water. Hyun's heart raced. He checked that none of his colleagues were watching, then moved to the ship's stern where the light grew stronger. As he watched, a small metallic sphere, unmistakably similar to Nari's beacon, rose from the water and hovered before him. It opened like a flower, revealing a crystal identical to the one he kept hidden in his desk. When he touched it, Nari's voice filled his mind as clearly as if she stood beside him. "Greetings, Hyun Kim of Earth. The Taeyang Council has been observing your world's progress with great interest. The wisdom with which you have shared our knowledge has not gone unnoticed." Images flowed into his consciousness. Taeyang observers watching Earth's oceans healing, children recovering from once fatal diseases, all spreading outward from the seeds Hyun had carefully planted. "The Council has voted," Nari's message continued. "Within this decade we will initiate limited diplomatic contact with Earth. Your people have shown remarkable growth. Your compassion especially has impressed many who once doubted your species' readiness." The final image was of Nari herself, her markings glowing brightly with what Hyun now recognized as happiness. "Your simple act of rescue did more than save one life, Hyun Kim. It opened a door between our worlds. Remember this lesson. In a vast universe filled with technology beyond imagination, sometimes the greatest power lies in the simplest choice: to help another in need." The sphere closed and sank back beneath the waves, leaving Hyun alone with stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. He smiled, understanding now that his impulsive dive into a collapsing underwater cave had changed not just his life, but potentially the course of human history. A colleague called his name from across the deck, asking if he was ready for the evening briefing. Hyun took one last look at the spot where the sphere had disappeared. "Coming," he called back, turning toward his fellow humans with renewed purpose. There was still much work to do before Earth would be truly ready for the stars.